Welcome to the Gals Guide to the Galaxy podcast, where a group of gals gather for you one cool thing around our topic of the month. Is it ancient history? Is it breaking news? Is it safe for work? Well, that's up to each gal. All we know is that...
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Welcome back. I'm Barb, and I am joined by Bonnie, Leah, and Katie. We're talking about one cool culinary gal. Katie already talked with us about the Barefoot Contessa, Ina Garden. But before we dive back in, Leah is going to tell us what's on the docket for Gals Guide on the calendar this upcoming week.
That's right. So for week 2 of February 13th through the 19th. Now, we are not normally open on a Tuesday, but join us for Valentine's Day this Tuesday, February 14th. We're going to be open from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. as the whole campus is going to be glowing with activities for couples and for singles. Gals Guide will have a wonderful empowerment activity that will be available for all. On Wednesday, February 15th, the Writers Galaxy will meet up at the Gals Guide Library at 4:30. Then on Thursday, February 16th, Film Club is going to be talking about two amazing historical ladies. We're going to talk about Julie and Julia. So it's a movie about Julia Child and Julie Powers. So join us online or in person at 5:30. And then Saturday, Tara Circle continues with our book study of Wisdom Rising by Lama Trissa Maloney. If you are interested in Buddhism or a seasoned practitioner, we have room for you in our circle. So for these and all these other amazing events on our calendar, check out galsguide.org. So I think you might have a rando question for us, Barb.
I do have a rando question that kind of goes with Culinary Month. So for the gals that are joined us today, what has been your most favorite dining experience or your least favorite dining experience? So do you have something over the top? Do you have something that's, that you just wouldn't consider going back to? It could be good or bad based on people, places, food, service.
True.
What are you thinking, Bonnie?
Bonnie's face. If you need time, I do have.
I've heard this rumor that you always go first. I know, right?
Right.
See?
I don't know. I don't think I have really any super awesome ones or super terrible ones. But usually, if there's pizza there,
oh yeah,
I'm good.
See,
something with melty cheese.
Mm-hmm. Nice. What are you chasing that down with? What are you drinking with that?
Usually, you gotta do soda. You can't do water with pizza.
I think you're right.
You gotta do a soda or a beer.
See,
or for me, it's usually alcoholic beverages. Usually the cider.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Very good.
Do you have a preference on wood-fired or not? Because Josh, is obsessed about wood-fired pizza.
Not really.
Okay, gotcha.
No, I like it. Or
you're I'll take
just
any
whatever.
kind of pizza.
Just whatever pizza.
Whatever. Or
I just want some bread and cheese.
Calzones.
Yeah.
Or
Yums.
yeah. Because I'm that dude from Parks and Rec, apparently. Watch it the whole time. I'm like, what's wrong with calzones?
There's nothing wrong with calzones. You can have them many different ways, that folded pizza.
Calzones or pepperoni breadsticks.
Yes.
Stuffed breadsticks, yum.
Every day in college class, I would go to the cafeteria and get you a pepperoni breadsticks.
Oh, pepperoni breadsticks.
Because no one could stop me. I'm an adult now.
I can eat what I want to eat.
Exactly. Very nice.
And nobody came and smacked your hands.
Nope.
Yep. Yeah, you're good. You're good.
They just took your money.
Right. Yep. Right. Fair enough. Leah, Katie.
Do you want me to go or do you want to go?
I have a lot, so I'm trying to keep it brief.
You don't have to.
You guys don't want to hear about it for this long.
I mean, we do.
A lot of really fancy, really nice places. I'm really lucky.
Sweet.
My whole family is kind of like a foodie, and I think my parents' hobby is eating out together.
Yeah, there you go.
So we are connoisseurs of this.
Yes, that's the word I was going for, yes.
But one of my favorite experiences was for my parents' anniversary. They invited us to come with them to this fancy downtown Cincinnati hotel where there's this restaurant called the Palm Court.
Ooh.
And
I've actually been there.
You've been there?
Oh,
Yep.
look at
I
that.
thought with that
I've
Ohio
never-
connection.
I've
Yeah.
never held court at the Palm
Right.
Court.
It's,
Oh my-
it's at the
it's-
Omni
do they,
Hotel,
like-
right?
Yes,
Yep.
and it's so fancy, and it's
fan you with
do you-
the palm frond.
Do you do the royal wave?
There's a lot of palm fronds. I didn't
There
get
are.
fanned by any, but I do
Right.
remember the palm fronds.
But it's a
Nice.
beautiful historic hotel, so I love old homes and historic things. So it's
Beautiful.
very swanky 1920s, like Roaring 20s theme to it.
Nice.
So it's gorgeous, but they always do a tasting menu. So it's like
Ooh.
a multitude
Yes.
of courses.
Yes.
Well, that's one of the things you can do is
Yeah.
do that.
I like it.
They made amazing old fashions. So it was just like being with our family and then having that slow dinner and sampling and trying fancy things was super cool. The other one I have to mention is here in Noblesville, we have 9th Street Bistro.
Oh, yes.
The chef from there,
Yes.
Chef
Yes.
Samir, was just nominated for a James Beard Award.
Yes!
And we actually had our wedding dinner there.
Yeah, you
And
did.
they made us an amazing vegan
Right.
feast
So good.
that I still dream about, the coconut braised collard greens. And I've tried to
Mm-hmm.
recreate them many times since, but it was
Oh.
incredible.
Yes. I'm so happy for Smear and for all of 9th Street because
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Oh gosh, get yourself there.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're in Noblesville, you got to go to 9th Street. It's so cute. I have two as well. I couldn't really decide. Both of them have very weird experiences. They're both good though.
Okay.
So when I was a kid, there was a place called Flip's Cafe, and
Have you been there, Barb?
it was in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
No.
Okay.
No.
It was Flips as in record flips. So it was a
cool.
50s style diner and it had girls on roller skates. So all the
Oh,
waitress
yeah.
and waiter
Yeah,
staff
yeah.
were on roller skates. And as a kid, this was amazing because I thought you can have a job where you're on roller skates all day. Like it was amazing.
Mind blown.
Also, yes, I was that person who was watching them, waiting for them to fall. Like I was like, it was an excitement. Like
crash.
am I going to get my food? Is somebody going to eat it? Like, oh, people like get up from their booth and they don't see that there's a
Right,
waitress staff
right.
coming a million miles an hour. So there's all these like, you can be an excellent roller skater, but there's still going to be things that are going to happen. So I just remember being like glued to my seat and loving everything. And it was 50s music and they had a jukebox on the table and it was just really, really cute. It didn't last though. So I think because it didn't last that long as a restaurant, I was always just kind of sad that Flip's Cafe didn't make it.
So did you ever see anybody wipe out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
With a plate full of drinks and everything.
Oh
it was a customer's
gosh.
fault too. So like, yeah, it was almost always a customer's
Right,
fault.
right.
But, and then you could tell there was like the new person who was like, they didn't give them food, but they were taking orders and stuff. And it was so cute. And I love them. But yeah, and I thought that was going to be my job, but they closed down. The other one is I never got to go to the Brown Derby in Hollywood. Brown Derby is where a lot of the
Yeah.
caricatures were. It's where a lot of movies happened and got made. There was always a phone on the big booth. There was like a phone so that the studio could call you at your table when you're making these, because most movie deals happened over lunch and they happened usually at the Brown Derby. A lot of Casablanca was written at the Brown Derby, a lot of weird stuff. So, but Disney World has a Brown Derby. And we went there for our honeymoon and we told everybody we were going for a honeymoon. So we had martinis galore and there was two ladies who were the characters that were the pretend gossip artists. And they came and they sat at our table for like 20 minutes and we
Aw.
pretend gossiped about everybody in the restaurant.
That's
And I know that they're
fantastic.
Disney paid employees, but it was so much, it just felt like I was part of that, that old kind of Disney, it was the Disney magic, but it was also the Hollywood magic and stuff like
Fun,
that.
very
so.
fun.
So I kind of got to do the Brown Derby and I learned how to make, this ties into cooking. They had the Cobb salad. So the original Cobb salad was created at the Brown Derby, supposedly. It was Ty Cobb who said throw in all these ingredients. And so they had a recipe card that I begged them for. And I got the recipe of how to make the Brown Derby Cobb salad. And I have remade it a couple of times. It has 4 different kinds of lettuce.
Oh my
Why?
gosh.
Why?
Texture, crunch, and flavor.
There you go. I just thought it was ridiculous and overly expensive, but I made it. So, Barb, what is yours dining experience?
So mine's going to be on the bad side.
Oh, there you go. Yes, no worries.
We were in Punta Cana for our 30th wedding anniversary, and it was an all-inclusive resort. it had probably 7 or 9 restaurants. And, when we showed up, we tried to pick restaurants for every night. And we're like, okay, so on our actual anniversary, which we celebrated while we were there, we're like, what's the nicest restaurant?
Yes.
So they had us go to one of the restaurants on the property, and it was a Michelin restaurant, Michelin stars. Apparently that's supposed to be really good.
It's supposed to be really good.
So my husband and I were there. Another couple joined us. The restaurant was phenomenal in that everything was just beautiful on the inside. They put us in this like private alcove, 2-story, beautiful. The drinks came out, with the dry ice, and we were just, oohing and awing over everything. And then the food started to come out. And I think, Katie, you said your family's kind of foodies. This is when I realized I am not a foodie. I'll be with Bonnie with the pizza and the beer because the food came out. We really had a hard time understanding the wait staff. They would try to explain or interpret. So one was called like scaly fish. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not the marketing title for that. But it tasted like scaly fish. And so for our anniversary, and we were there for like 3 hours because the courses, it was the tasting menu. The courses kept coming. And I'm like, I just want to leave.
Right.
I just want to leave. So, it was one of those experiences that, okay, we did that. Now let's go back and pop open the...
Right after that, you're like, where's the nearest pizza place, right? Exactly.
Right.
Let's bring this back down to reality.
There was a really good Mexican place while we were there, so we're like, we'll just stop by, get some margaritas, and we'll grab some tacos, and it'll be good.
It's like, so we tried that.
We did.
Check.
Yeah, but 3 hours in, I was like, okay, we can really be done with dinner now.
Is this now torture with food?
It was. It was really torture with food. I was a little distraught, so.
That is hilarious. Well, who do you have for us, darling? I'm excited.
So it's kind of fun. I kind of stumbled on this gal, and born as Ruth Ann Udstad. She was born into a family of Alsatian descent, so that's where I think the German name comes from. Alsace is a territory in the eastern part of France, but it's really a melting pot for like French and German culture, food, language, all of that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
So it really influenced her upbringing. So I think that's where the German influence maybe came in with her name. But Ruth, so her name is Ruth, and if you've ever heard of Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Yeah.
This is the Ruth associated with Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
That's the Ruth. Look at that.
So that name of that restaurant is a mouthful, and we'll get to how that all came about. But Ruth was born on February 5th, 1927.
Their little birthday girl.
Yes, a birthday girl for February. She was born in New Orleans, living most of her childhood in Plaquemines Parish. So New Orleans is broken down into parishes.
Right, yeah.
And she was in Plaquemines Parish, and that was her mother's birthplace. So they wanted to be close to mom and mom's family, and so that's where she was born and raised. Again, she was of Alsatian descent, so that definitely influenced her upbringing. She said her upbringing was poor. Her father sold insurance. Her mother was a kindergarten teacher. So not necessarily, I wouldn't say dirt poor, but definitely working poor.
Working poor, yeah. Mm-hmm.
When she was later asked about her upbringing as far as her culinary experiences, she said that her mom and her grandmother loved to cook. There was a lot of French influence. There was a lot of Creole food.
Yes.
It's New Orleans, so it's that kind of experience. And they loved it, and she loved to eat.
Yes.
so that was the tie-in.
I can relate to that last part.
Exactly. Well, Creole. I mean, French food. It's all fabulous. They were not steak people though. So that could be the part of the working poor, maybe not buying high cut steaks and things like that. So she didn't get really experience with that, and didn't really say that she was a big cook growing up. She just enjoyed the food that mom and grandma made, that's fair. That's what I did.
Gotta start somewhere, right?
That's what I did. Mm-hmm. And she's very much like the Barefoot Contessa, I think, because very smart when she was growing up in that area. She was in a one-room schoolhouse from second through fifth grade. And the story is that she retold the story that when the teacher would meet with the second graders, she was a second grader, so she would take that lesson. And then the teacher would move on to the 3rd grade. And Ruth would move on with the teacher and pick up that lesson and then pick up the 4th lesson and the 5th lesson.
Clever girl.
She stayed right on top of things, and that enabled her to graduate early. So she skipped classes, and she graduated at the age of 15.
Oh, wow.
So she was smart as a whip at that time. And then, she wanted to go to college, further that education.
Yeah.
I don't think that she really knew exactly what she wanted to do. But her parents really didn't have a lot of money to send her to college. So they used money from her brother's GI Bill benefits.
Oh.
I don't even know if this is...
I don't think it's on the up and up, but you know what? Whatever it takes for a girl to get an education, I will support.
So she went to Louisiana State University, LSU Fighting Tigers, down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And she's pretty close to home. And so she went at 15. She graduated at 19, which is 4 years, with a major in chemistry and a minor in physics.
Oh, my
And she graduated with honors.
What?
Oh my gosh.
So if you think about a gal in this time frame, so this would have been
even having the opportunity to learn those 2 classes.
Correct. And she was probably surrounded by a lot of people who were saying things like couldn't and shouldn't. And she pushed that all aside and graduated with honors.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I think you guys are getting an idea of kind of what she was like. Very smart. And she did have the support of her family that enabled her to do some of these things. And she didn't mind being a trailblazer. She didn't mind probably being the only gal in chemistry and physics class. So that was pretty cool. After college, she did get a teaching job at McNeese State University. That's also in Louisiana, a little bit farther from home. So she was 20 at the time when she started teaching. And she said of her experience in teaching, that was very short-lived. So a lot of guys were coming back from the war and using their GI Bill benefits to go back to college. So most everybody that she taught was older than she was, and they were ex-military. That's kind of a rough environment for anybody. And she said that most of them wanted to really learn, and they were concentrating on their studies, but maybe 5 to 10% were the jokesters in the class and maybe a little, inappropriate with her. So she kind of signed on. It was weird. She signed on mid-semester, and she made it through that mid-semester and through the following summer semester, and then she turned in her teaching credentials. She's like, I've had enough of this.
This was fun, but no.
Right.
No more, thank you.
So teaching fell by the wayside. Shortly thereafter, in 1948, she married Rodney Fertel. She and Rodney had 2 sons together, Jerry and Randy. Together, they opened a racing stable because they both shared a love of horses and thoroughbreds. Gotcha. So that's what they wanted to do.
What is a racing? Are they breeding horses or just caring for
So
a
it
horse?
was, so
I'm
both.
just curious. Okay.
I think it was both. I think they were breeding, and I think it was just raising thoroughbred racing horses.
Until they were of age.
Yes. And then trying to sell them and make some dough off of them.
Wow.
So to support the stable...
I just love horses, so I'm just thinking retirement gig for me. If I can is this still a job? I don't know. I'll find out.
I think it is still a job. I think it is.
I just want to take care of a horse.
So for Ruth, she earned a thoroughbred trainer's license.
Oh!
And she was the first female in Louisiana to be a thoroughbred trainer.
Nice.
So again, she's out there kind of on the cutting edge of her whatever industry she's working in, with the support of her family. I mean, obviously, the husband was supportive of that, and something that she was passionate about. So that's what she did.
Nice.
So she did that, but the marriage, unfortunately, was short-lived. They only were married about 10 years, and they divorced in 1958. So luckily for her, she did receive alimony, but it wasn't enough. So she knew she was going to have to do something in the working world. She started working as a seamstress for a time. She was doing some work out of her home and that kind of thing. But
she has a chemistry and physics, and she's a seamstress.
Correct.
Sometimes the world's not fair.
So we're gonna circle around. We'll get better.
Good,
I promise. I promise it'll get better. But she realized that she was
is
maybe
smarter than that.
little underutilized.
Yes.
And she also realized that as working as a seamstress, while it may pay her bills, she had 2 boys who she wanted to be able to send to college,
Yeah,
and she was not going to
absolutely.
be able to send them to college on this income. So
Mhm.
she wanted to make sure that she had a job that would support them. So
Nice.
in 1961, she took a job at Tulane University in the School of Medicine,
Oh.
and she worked with a physician/scientist named George Birch. George was very well known in the medical realm and studied in cardiology and had the study of cardiovascular diseases.
Wow.
So she became a lab technician and a research assistant to him. So she took the job at Tulane, and with the job at Tulane, again, 1961, she was making $4,800 a year.
Oh, gotcha.
So compared to the median income for a white male, it was $4,200.
Oh.
So she was making a little bit more than what the median income for a white man was. And just for a little bit, this is a fun fact for Katie.
Oh, fun fact. Oh, do you see how she did that?
I
Look.
did. She's
The,
good.
the median income for a non-white male was $2,300 a year.
Oh, wow.
And the median income for women was $1,300 a year.
Oh my goodness.
1,300?
$1,300 a year. And they didn't break
Wow.
women out into white and non-white in
Right.
that current census, but it was
Gotcha.
$1,300 a year, and she was making $4,800.
Wow.
So as you can see, she was probably a little bit more comfortable
yeah.
by that financial standard
Yes.
to be able to support the boys.
Yeah, nice.
But I think she still wanted something more.
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
still looking for something
Well,
more.
she's smart as a whip.
Right. She is. And she's not afraid of trying things. I like
Yeah.
that. Kind of bopped around a little bit.
Reinvention.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. So speaking of reinvention.
Yes.
So in 1965 she was actually reading a newspaper. Because that's what you did back
Sure.
in the day.
She was scrolling the newspaper.
Right. And there was an advertisement for Chris's Steakhouse. It was up for sale for $18,000 because Mr. Chris, as she called him, was going to retire.
Oh, this is starting to make sense.
So
Keep going.
she's right. So she's looking at that thinking, this is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then she noted the day that the restaurant had originally opened
Mhm.
was February 5th, 1927.
Her birthday.
It was her birthday.
Oh, wow.
So she saw that as a good omen that
Yeah.
this was meant to be.
Right.
So regardless of what her family, her friends,
Mhm.
her banker, her financial advisors told her,
Fair.
she decided that she would mortgage her house
Wow.
and buy this restaurant.
Yeah. Why not?
Okay, so she's a divorced mother of two
Right.
in her 30s. She'd worked as a teacher, a seamstress, a medical researcher at the university.
Yeah.
It was the mid-60s.
Right.
Probably not the best environment for
True.
women entrepreneurs.
Never worked in a restaurant.
She had never worked in a restaurant.
Okay.
At that point,
Sure.
she did not know how to cook a steak.
Well, I'm still laughing at her going from cardiovascular research
Yeah.
to owning a steakhouse.
I'm with you. 100%.
Very,
Yeah.
very funny. Very funny. But guess what? She jumped in full speed ahead. So I
Wow.
think
She
you're
did.
getting a sense of her personality.
Got it.
Driven, strong, very independent. She had a
Yeah.
very independent streak.
Made a decision and she's going for it.
She's going for it. So the restaurant opened on May 24th, 1965. On that day, they sold 35 steaks at $5 a piece.
Whoa. Okay, so I've only been to Ruth Chris once. That was not a $5 steak.
So that was in 65. So the prices may have gone up
A little bit.
little bit. Within 6 months, she was able to double her salary from the days at Tulane.
Wow.
And so
Doubled it from the
from
cardiovascular.
$4,800. Yep.
Whoa.
So she was
Nice.
making about $10,000 a year.
Whoa.
So as you can
She's
see,
rich.
right, she was getting a
Roll
little
it.
bit more
Get it.
comfortable,
Yeah.
a little bit more comfortable with her financial situation.
Amazing.
So we talked about how smart she was,
Mm-hmm.
but she had to, and that she had no restaurant experience.
Right. But she was going into a built-in restaurant.
She was. She
So
was.
that is a helpful thing, but at the same time, you can ruin it under new management very easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it was her, in her kind of persona, she wanted to know every role.
Yeah.
So she wanted to know how to wait tables. She wanted to know how to prepare the food. She wanted to know all about customer service. She wanted to know the financial back end, all of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So she really threw herself into learning the business.
Sweet.
And she was her, and Leah and I talked about this earlier, her stature. She was 5'2",
She was a
She's
little
about
hobbit.
110, very proper. So I saw an interview with her, and just very proper, legs crossed the appropriate way, blazer, pearls, that kind of thing. But she told the story of how when they first bought the business, they did not have an electric saw.
For the meat?
Yes. And she didn't have the funding to buy processed meat.
Okay.
So if you can picture this 5'2", 110-pound woman
Doing Rocky? Basically, like a Rocky situation back there?
with a handsaw
handsaw on the meat.
butchering her meat.
Wow.
That's what she did
Fierce.
to start the restaurant.
I want pictures.
Exactly. I'm sure there are pictures. I did not see them, but I'm sure that there are.
Fantastic.
And she ended up continuing to be a butcher for the restaurant for the first 5 years that they were in business.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She enjoyed it, and
It probably was very expensive. Is it expensive? I'm looking at Katie. I'm leaning onto the culinary lady. Is a butcher? Is it a very hard thing or expensive thing to pay for?
I would assume so.
You know what I mean? It seems like such a specialized thing. You would
I
cut
mean,
some cost if you could do it
I was
yourself.
going to say, any work somebody else has to do towards your product's going to cost you money.
right.
So
You're
definitely.
you're definitely cutting out the middleman.
Yeah.
You're cutting out,
Yeah.
and so she's buying the
cut some meat.
I've
I've
never
never been my own butcher.
I know you
I've
haven't.
not gone
Yes,
down
exactly.
that dark road, but
That would be a
sounds
dark
like
road.
she worked some frustrations out.
That would
Yes,
also
I
be
would think
difficult
so,
for
too.
you as in your veganness
Yeah,
right now.
yeah. It's actually been, I don't know, like 4 years since I've cooked meat. So
See, there you
Yes,
go.
yes.
I'm just most of my meat knowledge is from Rocky. Just so y'all
There you
know,
go.
okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So Rocky punching them and them
Yeah.
being in the
I don't
Tenderized.
think she
refrigerators.
punched them. I
I
don't
would
think she
love it if she
tenderized.
did.
Yeah, 5'2", 110 pounds. I don't know that she's denting anything.
I mean, it's you see the butchers all the time. They got these big old
Yes.
forearms.
Yes.
It's a
Yeah.
job
Yes.
that takes some muscle.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see the picture of her, and
And
I
then think
will
about-
include.
And then
the,
she's a butcher.
and she's a butcher. We'll include the video in the
Yes.
in the
oh,
show
in
notes.
show notes. Yes,
So-
absolutely. So you can see the little hobbit woman.
Yes, sweet as she can be, so proper. And the other very cool thing that she did with her restaurants, she took a very novel approach in staffing the restaurants, and she staffed with single mothers.
Oh, because she
so-
was one.
Exactly.
And she, yeah, kinship.
Exactly. And she said
was
that they were
nice.
hard workers and that they were very reliable.
Yes.
And not only did she hire them in, but she also made sure that they had room for advancement. So 3 of the
Aw.
original waitresses went on to manage their own steakhouse as
Ah.
the chain had expanded.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
so
like
she-
kind of breaking a glass ceiling. That's lifting as you climb.
Yes.
That's all of the things that we talk
Yes.
about. So yes,
Yes.
I dig it.
Loved it. She really did enjoy that. So
Yeah.
anytime she could help, especially women and children, so she
Mhm.
would pay for college or pay for educational experiences for kids that she came in contact with, whether it was through extended family, things like that, or whether they worked at the restaurant.
Yeah, yeah.
She had 2 boys, and she ended up with 5 grandsons, and she talked about how they all went away to college, but
Mhm.
in the summer they were there bussing tables
Oh,
at the
nice.
steakhouse,
Sweet.
learning the business.
Oh,
and
cute.
not necessarily they were going to go into the business, but they were working their way
It
through
was
college.
Yes, exactly. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. So it also became it's high end as
Yes.
we
Oh,
as
yeah.
we talked about.
It's expansive.
It came.
Yeah.
It was upscale dining in that
Yeah.
area, so that was kind of the to go if there was an event,
Mhm.
elections and events in town. Everybody poured into the steakhouse.
Mhm.
Fats Domino lived in that area and was a regular. Would
Oh!
come in.
I love fats.
Loved it.
Yeah.
So that was all at the original location that she had purchased, the $18,000 purchase.
Wow.
And then in 1976, the first location burnt down.
Oh, the original.
The
Okay.
original.
Got it.
So she had already acquired
Was
about
it a grease fire? I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
I'm sure that's what it was. I'm sure that's
I'm sure it
what
didn't
was.
help.
Right, exactly.
But yes.
She'd already acquired a space about 4 blocks away, and she was envisioning it being a special events venue.
Oh, okay.
However, when the first place caught fire, within 7 days they were up and running in the secondary location.
Oh,
so
wow.
she was,
Dang.
no pun intended,
She doesn't
chop,
play.
chop, chop.
Yeah,
Let's get in the
right?
new building.
Nice.
So here's where the weird naming, because it's always a mouthful to say Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. I'm like,
Right.
where did that come from?
Yeah.
When she bought the first place, it was Chris Steakhouse.
Yeah.
That name could not go to another location. It
Got
was
it.
Chris Steakhouse at the original location, and when it burnt to the ground, kind of the name burnt with it.
Gotcha.
So when she built at another location or opened in another location, according to the contract, she had to call it something else. So she called it Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. That way she could show her investment, but she can also show because she had the name recognition.
And she didn't lose that marketing,
Correct.
basically. She
Correct.
needed the marketing, but
Yep.
she needed a new name. Oh, see, like I thought she was putting her stamp on it. Like, this is mine now. Instead, it's, well, you need a new name. Just put mine on it. Whatever. Let's go.
And I think it was a pretty fast decision, right? They
Yeah.
opened in 7 days, and she had to come up with a new name.
Sure.
And she hated it. She hated the new name that they came up with, but she said it kind of stuck, so they just went with it. So it's just
Cool.
kind of very funny.
That does make sense.
The new location, it had 2 shotgun homes behind it. She ended up buying those homes, renovating them, and she lived there until she died,
Oh,
right
wow.
behind the restaurant.
So everybody always kind of talks about at one point in their life having that dream of having a shop or a restaurant downstairs on Main Street, and then you live in the apartment above it.
It's
So she
pretty
kind of
close.
did that, but lived behind the restaurant.
Pretty close. Yep, pretty
Aw,
close.
Adorbs.
She ended up with 80 locations in the U.S., and she did branch out overseas.
Wow.
And she became known as the First Lady of American Restaurants, or the Empress of Steak.
Oh my God, the
Oh,
Empress
nice.
of Steak. Does
How's
she
that?
have a crown?
I bet she did at the time.
Oh,
I bet she did.
That's lovely.
She continued to be very involved in the daily operations, even as she got older. In 1997, she was 70 years old, and she decided that she would visit 42 of her restaurants that year.
42.
I saw that, and I'm like,
42.
it's
She
definitely
Leah
knows.
fact.
Yes, exactly. That's a Leah fact right there.
There you go. There's your Leah fact. Uh-oh. Bonnie, I'm running out of room. I'll have to come up with something. But here's the thing. She said that she wanted to, quote unquote, smell how they were doing, because the restaurant business is all about that
Smells.
aroma. So she
Yeah.
went in.
That's why Jimmy John's has free smells.
There
Because
you
the
go.
rest of it, no, I'm just kidding. I won't.
So she thought, looking back, at 70, visiting 42 locations probably was a little much.
Yeah,
So,
but
but
I
she
love
was
it.
still, she was still involved.
Aw, cute.
And then in her early 70s, she sold the chain to a private equity firm out of Chicago,
Gotcha.
but she retained interest of just over 20% until her death. So she was still involved, still staying up with things.
Sweet.
In 2005, the company became a public company. They relocated to Florida
Like
and
you do.
continued. And
They retired to Florida?
Yeah.
Nice.
And it eventually became, instead of just the steakhouse, it grew into Ruth's Hospitality Group.
Oh,
So now
okay.
it's a restaurant-focused company, and they have over 100 locations, 5,000 plus employees, and a revenue of nearly $500 million. So
Wow.
that's the empire that she built
Yeah.
and retained interest in until she died. Shortly
Damn.
after she sold off to the private equity firm, she was diagnosed with lung cancer. So she'd been a very heavy smoker for 50 years.
Gotcha.
And then in 2002, at the age of 75, she passed away.
Gotcha. That's a long life, though. 75 in a restaurant business
Yes.
that can just drag
Yes.
you down. I mean, I remember when Katie was working at a bakery and I was worried about Katie just falling apart.
Right.
It's hard on your body.
It is.
So,
is.
yeah.
And then if you look at it, when she started in the 60s, again, a woman restaurateur
Mhm.
in a steak business.
Right, which is manly man.
Exactly. So you know she had it rough, but
Yeah.
I think she had the personality that she looked petite, she wore pearls, but
Right.
I'm thinking the woman could kick ass if she needed to. That's what
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, I
So
like it.
she was buried. Okay,
Bonnie fact.
this is the Bonnie fact, and it's not really the Bonnie
here's
fact.
buried
It's
and
not
went,
creepy at all.
I'm gonna introduce it. I'm gonna introduce it, and then we'll get to the Bonnie fact.
Okay. Yes.
And I literally thought of this when I was doing the research.
But you didn't know this whole Bonnie Lee and
Right,
Katie
I did
fact
not
was a
know,
thing, and
but
so Katie invented it.
saw
Got
the
it.
tie-in. I saw the tie-in. She is buried in a cemetery in New Orleans, and she had this lavish mausoleum built.
Oh, of course. Yes.
and
Got
it's
to.
it's granite and stained glass, and
Stained glass.
Yes, yes,
Wow.
and it was etched inside the building, or etched on the building. It says, "It's a wonderful world."
Oh.
So 150 people attended the dedication of the mausoleum. And
Okay.
Father Bob Massett blessed the building by sprinkling beer on it.
Nice.
So there you go. That's the Bonnie. That's the Bonnie. Maybe it should be the Katie fact because
Yes.
Katie's the
True.
beer the
Yeah.
beer gal.
Oh, but I
But
like that though.
Um,
Sprinkle me kindly. Ladies, that's how I want to go. Okay?
There you go.
Ta-da!
Sprinkle the
there
beer.
you go. There you go. There you go.
Blessed be.
I don't care if it's PBR. Champagne and beers would be, extravagant, but
You did live the high life.
You do what you need to do.
That's what I will say.
You find whatever's on the side of the road. Pay that tribute.
So I think you all can see, what I liked about her.
Definitely.
She was just one of those women that, for one, I don't think that you could tell her you can't or you shouldn't,
Right.
because I think she's just going to throw that by the wayside. If she's got her
Mhm.
mind made up, she would have done it.
Right.
And then just all of the things that she either did first or she led the charge in. She wasn't afraid to be kind of that trailblazer her entire life. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And then smart, determined, driven, strong, independent. Not only dedicated to her family, but like you said, Leah, kind of
Mhm.
reaching back and pulling
Yeah.
folks along with her. So,
Yeah, it wasn't just for her benefit. She also went into the community, but she also looked out for other women who were just
Yes.
in the same situation that she was when she started the whole thing.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's nice.
And I enjoyed that. And especially when she said when she was staffing, she's like, they're hardworking, and they're kind of committed to the work. And I just don't see Mr. Chris,
Right.
the previous owner.
Mr.
And I don't
Chris.
know Mr. Chris, but I'm
Right.
thinking that he would not have taken the same approach,
Right.
staffing with women, single moms who just
Mhm.
really needed a helping hand. And it was fabulous that she did that. And she grew the business to such a
Crazy
fabulous-
level. Yeah, that's
crazy
nice.
level. So they are really known,
Mhm.
obviously for their wonderful steaks. And she would talk about it, just to hear her talk about how you prepared it. You could tell
Mhm.
it was now her passion. So while she
Yeah.
didn't grow up eating steak, it became her passion.
Right.
And her passion was in practice through her
Aw.
restaurant. So
I want to end the episode on that beautifulness,
okay.
but I have a weird fun fact.
Okay.
That I feel
Oh.
like if I don't share this weird, wonderful fun fact, it'll never come up again on this show.
Ooh.
So, I worked for VH1's Pepsi Fan Jam when the Super Bowl was in town.
Nice.
So when Indianapolis had the Super
Yep.
Bowl,
Mhm.
I was a production assistant. We call them peons. Basically, I had a piss job, but I drove a van. So my job was to drive a van and to bring people from either their hotels to set or to the airport and back.
Yep.
Well, their emergency call came in during the recording of the show, and they said, the All-American Rejects want to go to Ruth Chris. Leah, I'm going to need you to take the band.
Nice.
So I took the All-American Rejects, sweetest little boys. I'm just saying, also cute as fucking shit. So cute, so nice. One of them called me ma'am, and I let it go. I think because he's Southern and he knew that was supposed to be.
Right,
But
right.
they were all so nice and super just yeah. So I hear an All-American Reject song and I go, I'm going to take these boys to Ruth Chris.
That's awesome. What a fun story.
Weird fun
Yes,
fact. So,
yes.
but they
I love
enjoyed. I didn't have to pick them
Good.
up. Somebody else had to pick them
Good.
up, but I just had to
Good.
drop them off.
Nice. Well, good taste. And
Right.
for the boys.
Exactly. Very beautiful. Do you want to wrap us up with the episode close, darling?
Okay, well, that wraps it up for us this week. Join us next week for another cool woman of history as Gals Guide podcast continues. Thanks for listening.
For show notes, links, and images from this week's show, visit galsguide.org. Want exclusive stuff like deleted bits and major bloopers? Become a Gals Guide patron today. Thanks for listening.